Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dark Rhino Security, Security Confidential. And today we are honored to have Ken Underhill join us. Ken has his own show on cybersecurity, and he is a best-selling author. So hoping that I'll get to talk a lot less, and he can take over as a talk show host here. But Ken is the CEO and executive producer and host of Cyber Life. He's the best-selling author of Hack, the Cybersecurity Interview, a complete interview preparation guide for jumpstarting your cybersecurity career. You might have seen him before. There we go. On Forbes, Reader's Digest, Tech Republic, Fox, NBC, Dark Reading, several places. He's a well-known person. We're honored to have a big name like him. Thanks for being here, Ken.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So Ken, I got to ask you, I looked a little bit at your background, and you obviously have a deep education in cybersecurity, but here you are doing a show. So what gives?
Yeah, so back in the pre-COVID days, back in the ancient days, I had a podcast called Cyber Life. People wanted to basically stalk me when I went out to Black Hat in Vegas. And so I created the podcast just for that, to give my thoughts as I did the conference and stuff. And that blossomed into probably 4 or 5 months after that. I got an opportunity to, some people I knew were creating a media company, and they said, "Hey, do you want your own TV show?" And I'm big on opportunity favors the bold. So I always, like, if there's an opportunity comes, I say yes, even though I have no clue what I'm going to do. So I had no clue what I wanted to do show on, didn't have a name for it, anything. I just said yes to that. So they asked, what do you want the name to be? The only thing I could think of was Cyber Life, which is my podcast. And then they said, what's it about? I said, cybersecurity. And of course, we all know that could mean a million different things. So the show was born. And because with the pandemic and everything, it delayed production, all that stuff. So it actually came out last year. I was with that other media company, and then I changed to a different media company. I think it was November, December of last year, and it just kaboom! It just exploded. Now I'm in over 300 media outlets globally, Amazon, Roku, all that stuff. Just a few million people a month watch the show across all those channels. So it just exploded from there, and it's really cool because unlike social media and even podcast platforms, you're really at the mercy of them. Tomorrow they could shut down and you have no options. And tomorrow they could say they don't like, as you said, this one thing, and now you're banned forever. Whereas with a TV show, I can literally say whatever I want. I keep it G-rated, but I can say whatever I want to on the show, and nobody cares. And my guests can say whatever they want. That's very impactful for people from disadvantaged backgrounds, specifically minority individuals or those from disadvantaged backgrounds, where they can actually share their voice without a biased algorithm blocking them. So for me, it's very impactful for them to get out there, get their face out there, get their message out there, get their wisdom out there. And then from there, there's some little kid out there that's going to see someone that looks just like them on TV and say, ooh, what's the cybersecurity stuff? I want to get, I want to go down that path. So that's really the purpose behind the show as well.
So have you given up on being a cybersecurity practitioner then, Ken?
No, I still get in trouble. No, so I run Cyber Life as a brand as a whole. It's a training school, a training company. So we do, of course, the B2B side, but also consumer market. We have the Cyber Life School, which the vast majority of stuff on there that's being built is going to be free or low cost, just because we don't want economic barriers for anyone. And I can share a story around that if you want.
Please.
And then under that umbrella, we also have the Cyber Life television show, which is kind of the media division part of that. So the story behind the Cyber Life School, just one example, is I had a course years ago on forensic stuff, and people are always asking for free stuff. I'm sure. I mean, if you own a company, people are like, "Oh, give me."
Yeah.
And you're like, "I know this." And so I had, people always reach out for, give me the course for free. This one gentleman reached out. He was in Bangladesh. He reached out for free. At first I was like, yeah, forget you. Come on, it's $10. It's $10 for a course. Like, that's less than Starbucks.
Yeah, but they're in Bangladesh.
No, exactly. Yeah. And so he was like, no, that's like my average monthly salary. And so I looked it up because I'm like, let's do some fact checking here, buddy. I don't believe you. Yeah. But no, it's true. And so I was like, oh crap. Yeah. There's people out there all over the world that cannot afford the things that we take for granted here in the United States. So I gave him a coupon to take it for free. I said, make me proud. Heard nothing back. And I don't look at students as they're going through stuff. I don't really monitor that because most people aren't going to do anything. And so, from my experience, and so it was probably like 6, maybe 7 months later, I get a message from the guy, and he's just like, "Oh, thank you so much. Give me all this praise, and thank you so much. You changed my life." And he was sharing how he took that course, and then he was able to get a job, and that job he was able to get with some government agency or whatever over there. He was actually able to send his young daughters to school finally. He was actually able to have the money to do so. And so I started kind of at that point, it's when you create courses or books or anything and people share their stories and stuff, you don't, at least I didn't fully recognize or appreciate the bigger impact that type of stuff has of sharing your knowledge with the world. And that's where I realized, like, oh, it's not just this one person and getting a job or something like that. It's more about the ripple effect. Because now his daughters get educated. Now they may have maybe they turn out to be a heart surgeon that figures out a new solution or whatever, to where you can just click a button and magically all your, atherosclerosis goes away. By the way, that doesn't exist yet. So if you're out there eating cheeseburgers, don't count on that.
Don't count.
But it was really a moment for me to realize that there's a huge ripple effect out there when you're sharing your knowledge. And honestly, one thing I realized, I'll share one other story real quick. I know we got to be mindful of time because I tend to talk a lot, Manoj. You were talking about, hey, we'll stay at our limit. I'm like, we're going to go for like 8 hours here. So
no, you know what? I look, I talk a lot. And being a somewhat of a podcast host, that goes with the territory. So it's great having somebody else on that can pick up for me, and I can be quiet for a change and really listen, because these stories always fascinate me. It's the story that's the real deal. That's. So please, absolutely. Another story.
All right, we'll give you another story. So I created a course years ago. It was a course on health. And very, very basic stuff, like you should eat vegetables. I mean, stuff that we kind of take for granted again, and vitamins and minerals, and kind of explain things and all that, amino acids, all that stuff. It was a very generic kind of course, and I put it out for free. And so, of course, there's hate mail. Anytime you create content, someone's like, you're a jerk and you should die and you should kill yourself, and all these loving messages you get from people on the internet. And so I kept getting a lot of those, a lot of that hate mail. So it was, I think it was a Sunday, if I recall correctly. Saturday, it was a weekend, I remember. It was like raining here where I am, thunderstorm, kind of that. It's like almost like a novel, right? It's like, oh, it's a thunderstorm and it's dark and, all these things going on. And you hear spooky sounds, and I didn't hear spooky sounds, but you get the idea. And so I logged in because I was like, man, forget these people. Like, screw them all. Like, I'm not going to ever create something again. Like, they can all just, eat cheeseburgers and go to hell, as far as I'm concerned. And so I logged in, and I'm seeing, literally, man, there's like 60, 70 just jerks, just, you suck.
Trolls,
and,
man.
Right. Yeah. Burn in hell, all these things. I'm like, God, what
hey, that's part of the territory, man. So
no, it is. Yeah. And that's what you got to realize, right? The more successful you are, the more people you help, the more a-holes are going to be out there. But so I'm looking through all these messages, and I was like just about to unpublish a course because, like, forget it. I give up. And there's still probably like, I don't know, 20 more messages or something I had to go through. And something said like, look at the next one. Look at that next message. Just look at one more. And I was like, all right, whatever. Let's see what this a-hole has to say. And so it was actually turned out to be this guy named Miguel. I wish I remembered where he's from because I would love to track him down. Don't remember his last name or anything. But he sent me this message, and he shared a story. And he said that about 6 months prior, he was in the hospital, had a liver transplant.
Oh, my.
And the doctors came in and were like, look, your body's rejecting it. I think he was in Spain or something. Spain or Mexico. I can't remember. Wow. But basically, your body's rejecting the liver. And you've got about 6 months or less, you're going to be dead, so kind of get your affairs in order and whatnot. Well, the thing is, his daughter was supposed to graduate high school in just about 6 months, and he wanted to see her walk across stage. And so he went online, searching, and God, there's so much information online. You're just like, oh, mind blown. I don't know what to do. So he got frustrated. He said he closed his laptop down and just, sat there and kind of cried a little bit in the hospital. And then something in his gut said, just do one more search. And somehow he found my course. Like, I didn't do marketing or anything, back then. So I don't know how he found the course, but somehow he found it. He went through it. The way I teach things, he like resonated with, like a lot of people. Wow. he more importantly actually like took the information and like did something with it instead of just sitting on his ass. And so he what he shared is that he got healthier, and by eating healthier, he actually the doctors were amazed because his body stopped rejecting the new liver. He got he was able to get to the hospital and
Wow.
everything. And he sent me that message. It had to be a Sunday because normally they do graduations like at least here in the States they do it over the weekend and stuff. So he sent me that message, and he was saying that the day before he was able to watch his daughter, walk across the stage and graduate. And he was just, thank you, all this stuff. And
Wow.
and like I immediately forgot all about the assholes out there. We may have to blur out some of
Nah,
this swearing,
there's a lot of them
I'm
out there.
yeah, no, oh god, they're everywhere. It's like you could post a cute photo of like a cute little puppy or cat, and they'll be like, burn in hell. I'm like, what's that got to do with anything? Like it or unlike it. But anyways, Miguel shared his story, and so like immediately then, like it was just like a pivot in my mind where I just like turned a switch, so to speak, and I blocked out all those haters because I mean they kept coming. I mean, yes, but every time I dealt with a hater, every time I from that point moving forward put out a course or later years put out a podcast or whatever video, I always think about people like Miguel and their stories and say, well, I don't do it for the haters. Like I could care less. You can all die tomorrow. I don't care. It has no effect on me. I assure you. But there's a Miguel out there, or whomever you are out there that needs that message, that needs the information, that can only learn from me and not somebody else. And that's one thing I also realized when I shared the story on Miguel is we all have a gift, and people oftentimes we do things that we think are like just regular,
Yep.
and other people think it's so extraordinary of the things that we do, and it's honestly it's a disservice to the world if you're not willing to share that through whatever medium you're comfortable with. It could be a video, it could be a podcast, it could be writing a book, it could be blogs. I mean, it could be a million different ways, right? There's a lot of ways to share that, but I think that it's a huge disservice from the world because there's someone out there that can literally only learn from you. They will never be able to learn that topic unless you teach them. And so I think that's maybe a message for the audience listening here that all of you listening right now, you have a gift and you think it's something just regular. You don't even think about it usually, but usually you can check with the people that are around you, like your loved ones, friends, whatever. And they'll be like, oh yeah, you're really good at whatever. Maybe it's painting or gardening or cooking or something like that. And you take it for granted because it's like it comes naturally to you, but it's something that somebody else would really love to do. And again, they can only learn from you. And let's just use cooking as an example. Maybe you put a video out and you throw it on YouTube. I don't use TikTok. So you throw it on YouTube where somebody 10 years from now can still find the freaking thing. And they look at it and then they become a world-renowned chef because they watched your video at age 10. You never know what kind of impact that is. I'll give you an example with I think we'll talk about the book a little more later, but when we put the cover out of the book before it even launched, I posted that on LinkedIn, and there's a young woman said, I finally feel like I belong because of this cover. I finally feel like I belong in cybersecurity because I see someone like me on the cover, of this book. And so those things that we take for granted, like for us, we just didn't want the hacker in the hoodie, right? We were like, not everyone's a hacker in a hoodie. Yes, it's hacker.
Well, that's that's the 99.99999% of people think that's the people who practice cybersecurity. The hacker in the hoodie.
Well, I got my hoodie in the other room. I want to tone it down for this episode.
But see, it strikes me that you have a real sense of purpose here, and you're actually trying to make a meaningful difference. And I think that gives a lot of meaning to what you're doing, and that's a wonderful thing.
So I'll share another story, and then we can move on. I'll stop with the stories after being here.
No,
so I grew up very, very poor, very poor, like a lot of people. There's actually a lot of people in cyber that had very similar backgrounds in a way, whether they grew up in the city or more in the country like I did. But I grew up in a rundown trailer. You'd fall through the floor because it was all rotted. The roof was rotted, so it always leak and stuff like that. Underneath the trailer, number one, it was a very small space. It was probably about, when you first went under there, it was probably about 2 feet, maybe 1.5 feet high. And then as you got more towards the back of the trailer, where we had this like kind of addition part built on, like this single room built on the back side of it, it got to like 1 foot. The problem with that is there was a bunch of spiders under there. So like if you crawled under there, like the spiders would think you're prey, so they're like dropping down on you. So what I would have to do in the wintertime is we had this, it was kind of a paper tube. and it ran from the one heating vent that worked on the living room area to this back bedroom where the kids slept, and that's the only way we had heat in the winter. Otherwise, we'd have froze to death. And so what would happen is this like skunks would get under the trailer in the winter, tear open the tube because they're trying to get warm too. I mean, come on, right? And so they'd crawl under there and they'd be in the tube. So I'd have to go under there, crawl under there, and I was really small growing up. I'm still kind of a smaller, shorter guy. But growing up, like around this age, I like just picture a toddler in your head, like toddler-sized kid in your head, crawling under this trailer with a flashlight that half the time didn't freaking work, and a roll of duct tape. And you're crawling back in the darkness, and you're hoping, number one, the spiders don't get you because there was poisonous spiders dropping on you. And then you also hope that there's no skunks in there or anything else, because sometimes I'd go in there, there'd be skunks, and I'd have to like try to scurry back out real quick and run for my life. So, and I got sprayed a couple of times, but you're crawling under there, and you're trying to wrap this up with the duct tape to try to keep the heat in or whatever. And I had to keep doing that over and over growing up. And so when I actually create things, including the book, it's in essence to help everybody, right? Yay, warm and fuzzy feeling. But in reality, I'm trying to help that little kid under the trailer. I'm trying to give him, like, for example, the book. I actually was able to get it in the library I used to spend a lot of time in growing up. It's they'll get it later this week. I shipped them a copy. And what I wanted with that is I want that little kid in a trailer or in the hood in a city that's having a real crappy life right now to pick up that book. And I also got it in a community college locally here as well. I just got the email back from them today. So
that's awesome.
But anyways, I want a kid to be able to pick up that book or watch a course or something of mine. Probably pick up the book and just believe in themselves, right? They're just like, I can do something different. It just because I had people that did that for me. I had I'll share another story and then we'll move on. When I was in, I think it was freshman year. So I got called down to the principal's office, and I was a fighter growing up. I got in a lot of fights. So I was like, what do I do now? Right. You're expecting the worst. So I go down there and I go in the principal's office, and he's like, sit down, an aggressive voice and stuff. I'm like, well, somebody ratted me out for something. And so I sit down, and he's like, he like slides this piece of paper across his desk. And I'm just like, what's this? And he said, one of your teachers recommended you for, they called it a Talent Search Scholarship. I don't know the name of it now or the official name, but basically some teacher, I think it was in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, something recommended me for this scholarship program at the community college in the next town over. I mean, like I said, I was poor. I had no money for college. Like that was not even an option in my head. And so, I was heading down the wrong track in life at that point. And so like, that was a huge moment for me because somebody believed in me, and it let me know that somebody believed in me. And like, I took it somewhat seriously. I'm come on, I'm a high schooler, so I'm still partying and stuff, but I took it pretty seriously and like focused. That was kind of like the grounding factor there. And then I'll share one last story on that. But anyways, one last story on that is I was partying a little too much, just drinking water because you're underage. Yeah, it's crazy. It never happens. Yeah. You're just drinking water back then because it's illegal for you to get alcohol and stuff back then.
Sure.
Yeah, illegal.
Sure.
And so I was partying too much, but I got called down to the counselor's office junior year, and it was the first semester of junior year, right at the beginning. And he sat me down. I don't remember his name, gray-haired guy, and he's like, "Look, you're going to lose your scholarship if you don't get your grades up, because I'm going to have like below a 2.0 at that point, and you had to have a 2.0 minimum to keep this scholarship. 2.0, I think it was actually a 2.5 you had to get to keep that. And so I got my like first semester junior year, I got my SHIT together, and I buckled down and I pulled off 4.0s throughout it and graduated with I don't think I got a 3.0. I think I hit like 2.9 or something and some change or whatever.
Hey man, we're rounding up.
I got above the minimum, right? That's all that matters, right? People get, I need straight A's. No, you don't. You need a C and you pass, whatever. But sharing that to say that somebody planted that seed way back then, which with enough hard work and dedication and everything, of course, because you can't just sit on the couch like a lazy ass, but with enough work and stuff, got me to where I am now, where I'm having this impact. And when I create content or anything, whether that's video or books or posts or whatever, that's the impact I'm trying to have, is that there'll be somebody getting a seed planted and they'll go on to do something. It doesn't have to be in cyber. It might just be, doctor, lawyer, whatever, president, who knows? we definitely need better presidents. So please,
Well, that's
but we
now
won't.
that topic we could get into a lot of stories about, right?
Oh, tons. Yeah.
And if you want hate mail, we can definitely talk about that.
I'll get it no
We'll
matter what. So,
so, two questions on this.
Mhm.
So, I want two secrets from you. So, one,
All right.
you come across as a very positive human being, and given your background and how you've gotten to such a successful place, what was your secret to avoid being the victim? The always me. Bad things only happen to me.
I was headed on the wrong path, and I think that for me, I think it was that scholarship, right? Because I had friends that were moving a lot of narcotics and stuff like that. In fact, one of my friends' dads was in organized crime. One of the biggest things he actually said to me was very impactful, and I learned to be very. I don't like the word humble because I think that degrades how much work you're putting into things if you actually look up the definition of it. But I think that what he said is the best way to say it. I don't know a better way to say it. The thing he said to me was basically, real gangsters move in silence. And if you actually look at organized crime, like that's true, right? Like real organized criminals are more business minded, and it's a business. You got to run the business. And sure, they're doing the nefarious things as well as part of the business, but they're very quiet on what they're doing, as opposed to someone on the street corner, obviously in front of the liquor store, obviously slinging dope. Like you can spot it a
Right.
million miles away.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a dead
So
giveaway, right? You
it's a
can
dead
get the
giveaway. Yeah.
crackhead, you can get the pot
Yeah.
dealer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
You don't
that's
want to.
yeah. So to me, that's a lesson I think for anyone as you become more successful in your life and career and stuff. I think you need to, instead of using the word humble, and again, if you really dig into the definition of that, you would be, words are very important, by the way. So you'd be really downgrading your success, which you shouldn't do, but you also shouldn't be out there like throwing it in people's faces constantly. So I think that quote is honestly the best thing I could ever share advice wise on how to deal with success is, real gangsters move in silence, and really just let your success speak for itself. You don't have to go out there constantly. Like, it's okay to kind of, like, I plugged the book, right? I'm like, oh, look, we're helping people, or we're doing this or that. I'm not trying to sell more copies of the book. I could care less, right? You're not going to make trillions of dollars off of a freaking book, but I want to get the book in more hands. So maybe that'll get someone to share the poster or whatever. But I think you just need to maybe remember that phrase as you become more successful in your life and career.
There's a plethora of cybersecurity podcasts. In fact, it's one of the topics out there that is very well written about and very well talked about. But it seems like no one is listening. And I kid you not. You just, because if they were, there's such good advice given, not just here, but in the, our colleagues. They have great shows. You are one of the few that's gotten the year of the audience. What's your secret on such a dry topic?
Yeah, you just got to relate it to things they actually care about at the end of the day. Like, not to knock any, there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of great podcasts with a lot of great information. I know a lot of people with them. There's this place called Dark Rhino that has a really cool podcast as well. And but I think that the general public doesn't care at all about security. Like, they literally don't. But when you relate it to things they care about, that's when you can get the message across. So for example, nobody cares about a ransomware attack. The general public, they could care less. I don't care about ransomware. But and they don't care about hackers. Let's be real, they don't care about hackers. But when I say, hey, do you want someone to look at your little girl through the baby monitor? No. Do you want to protect against that? Yeah. How do I do that? Oh, do these
Yeah.
couple of things, right? You don't need to dive into the theory of whatever people get too technical. Like, make it as stupid as possible. Like, pretend like, and actually a few people that I brought on my show, I made them explain like a ransomware attack to like a little kid. And it's interesting to see like
Oh,
how everyone does it. But you've got to take whatever the topic is and break it down. For example, if you want to talk about defense in depth, nobody cares. Nobody, except for like technical people. Nobody else cares about defense in depth.
I
But if
could
you say,
agree with that.
no, exactly,
Experientially,
yeah,
I completely
no,
agree with you. Nobody gives a rat's
exactly.
ass. Yeah.
But you know what you do? You say, do you like Mexican food? And they say, yeah. Like, do you like tacos? Okay, cool. Do you like tortillas? Yeah, of course. All right, great. So think of defense in depth this way. think about it like I have a taco and I want to add things to it, right? Because I want to make a really yummy taco. And so I add maybe avocados or spinach or meat or cheese, salsa, whatever you like in
I
the
have not
taco.
had lunch yet, and now thanks for that
Well,
imagery.
and I knew that because I hacked your laptop earlier, so I knew this, and so that's why I brought up the taco thing. But you layer it, right. Another good example with like defense in depth, which I actually have used in trainings before, is think of it like your house. So you and your neighbor side by side, same house design and everything, but and both of you have really big screen TVs and a lot of jewels and money and all that stuff in the house you want to protect. Your neighbor has nothing to protect it. You have a fence, you have a dog, you have security system, cameras and stuff everywhere. Maybe you put landmines in your yard. I don't know what you do. If you're in Texas like me, maybe you do some weird things to protect your house. There's a lot of weird.
Landmines,
There's a lot of
man.
there. Hey,
That's
hey. I don't go to small towns in Texas for a reason, so I just leave it like that. But you have different things in place, right? So when a bad guy comes and they're like, I want to steal that TV, they look at your place that's got a fence and dogs and all this stuff going on. They look at your neighbor where they can just walk in the front door that's unlocked. They're going to usually go to them, right? Because it makes sense. Path of least resistance. Criminals, as a general rule of thumb, are lazy. Just like criminal hackers or groups like that, they're lazy, right? What's the path of least resistance? Well, I can get Larry an account and click on something so I can get in. Or I could go try to do all these fancy hacks and stuff, but I could just socially engineer Larry in accounting and get in every single freaking time. That's the way I'm going to go. So you just have to like relate anything you're talking about around cyber to really get it across to people. First off, you need to figure out like who is a person and what they're interested in. So that requires you to like actually talk to them and listen a little. And
oh,
then from there
well,
you can find out like what they like. Maybe they like dogs or cats or they travel a lot or whatever. So you could say like, hey, when you're out traveling, do you take a lot of photos and stuff to kind of get those memories and stuff to share? Oh yeah, I share them all the time on social media. Okay, well, what would happen? Do you take them with your phone? Yeah. Well, what would happen if somebody attacked your phone and you couldn't use it? Can you still take the photos? Well, yeah, I can. Okay, well then what happens next when they attack your social media accounts and they start posting like random nude photos from random porn videos instead of your vacation photos?
oh,
And then
that.
it becomes something that people start caring about, right?
Well,
So
at least
that's the
people would
best
be
way to do it.
listening then. I can
Well,
tell
at
you
least they listen, right? You can't control what they actually do, but at least they listen. A good example is like business owners, unless they're in the tech space, they don't give a damn about cyber. They really don't. Most of them don't because they're worried about sales and marketing. Like I'm trying to grow my business. I don't give a shit about this tech stuff. But when their social media accounts hacked because they didn't enable two-factor authentication, that's when I've had several reach out to me like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Well,
Or they
can you
wrote a
hack?"
check for a whole bunch of money that they shouldn't have written because
Right?
somebody
Yeah.
social engineered
Uh-huh.
them.
Yeah.
Now
All
it's
all
all
these
of a sudden
things.
an interesting problem,
Yeah,
which
your crypto account gets hacked, so now your $80,000 you had in there, you don't have anymore. So these little things, right? But when you relate it to examples that people actually care about in their everyday lives, that's the secret. That's the secret to get them to actually care.
you know, you've brought up in your answer several things that are pitfalls with the impressions people have about cybersecurity and teaching both. So, one observation, and this is one that is that if you can't break down the topic into something that's digestible, i.e., if you've forgotten what it's like to be blind, you shouldn't be teaching, right? If you make too many assumptions about what people know and what they understand, and you should assume they understand nothing, right? The second thing is the perceived technical nature of the topic that is cybersecurity, right? People often they're like, well, that's such a technical topic. It's all about firewalls and routers and EDR and XDR and AI, and none of that stuff I know anything about, right?
Yeah,
And
so
that is unfortunately a myth, and it's causing a lot of dysfunction out there. But I'll let you comment on this.
I'll comment on both of those. Number one, I'm checking off as you mentioned all those terms. I'm checking off my buzzword bingo card, so
Oh,
I'm pretty close. I'm excited. I'm excited. I don't know what I win. Probably some ransomware. I don't know. But so touching on the first thing you mentioned there, as far as teaching. So when I create content, I have a grandmother. I won't say her name, but she doesn't touch the internet. She doesn't do social media, any of that stuff. Like she's
Okay.
completely non-technical. Like if you could picture in your head, like the old lady that people always thinks is non-technical, she's it. And so when I teach anything, I build the content as if I'm talking to grandma and I have to explain it, and that forces me, and if you know your stuff, you should be able to do this. I don't care what level you are as a practitioner, if you actually know the thing, you should be able to break it down for someone that's not technical to understand it. And again, going back to relating it to things from everyday life, so that's when I create content. I always focus on grandma, and I'm fortunate that I have one that's not technical. But just think of, if you don't have a grandma that's like that, if your grandma's a hacker or whatever, then just think of my grandma that's totally not technical, and figure out how you would explain it to her without any technical terms
Okay.
whatsoever. And for me, she likes to cook and bake and stuff. So anything I would want to teach, I would have to use that as an example for her to be able to understand it. Otherwise, she would just be like, I don't know what you're talking about, and ignore me. I don't even think she watches. She doesn't watch a lot of TV either. So like she's totally electronics,
Totally
not in there.
unplugged.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. So that's the main thing there. And cybersecurity as itself, yeah, people hear a term like that. Some people don't even know what the hell cyber is. You say cybersecurity, they're like, "What is that?" And you have to explain it to them. And again, you have to explain it like they would understand. Like they don't know any. You start blah 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 on some definition you find in the book, they're gonna be like, deer
What
in
are you
the
talking?
headlights, tuned out, like whatever. Uh, so with cybersecurity, number one, you don't need technical skills to get. And I'll put this out there, and it's going to piss a lot of people off. Probably a lot of people are going to get pissed off by this, but I don't think you need to have technical skills for your very first job. You need to have knowledge, regardless of what job you're going into. But to get your very first entry level cybersecurity job, you do not need to put your hands on a keyboard, in my opinion. Because the reason I say this is because I speak with a lot of companies and a lot of
Yeah.
hiring managers, and none of them give a damn that you've worked with Splunk or something, because they can train all of that. They just need you to have a general idea of what the hell's going on, and then they'll take you and put you through paid training to get you the hands-on technical skills. I think there's a disconnect there, because what you see on social media is
Right.
everybody, number one, everybody that can't get a damn cyber job is saying, let's do a 100-day challenge. What the hell is that supposed to do for you? Nothing. And I get it. There's some value there, whatever. But like, let's be real. You need to focus on a couple of main things. Number one, your personal brand. Number two, your networking. Figure out how you can network with the right people at the companies you're looking for, not just the jobs you're trying to find, because probably at least 90% or more of cyber jobs are never advertised. They're never going to be advertised. You get them because you've made a connection with someone, and you say, for example, I don't like to use SOC analyst, so I'll say GRC analyst or privacy analyst,
Okay.
right? So you tell Ken that you're looking at that as a career, and I see you working hard on LinkedIn. You're building your brand as you're learning things. You're sharing it, trying to help other people. And then when Minaj is like, "Hey, Ken, I'm looking for someone. We just came out of a meeting. I'm looking for someone that's entry level, that could jump into a GRC role, that's willing to put in the work. We'll train them. We need someone that's willing to put in the work." Guess who I'm going to say? I'm going to say your name, right? Because you come to mind, because you've shown that you built that real connection, right? So you've shown that you're someone that I can stamp my brand in. And I think there's a big disconnect when people talk about networking. There's what do they call it? The lions, like LinkedIn, whatever networker, bullshit is what they are.
Yeah.
But whatever they call themselves, I think
I
lions or
forget what
something.
it's called. Yeah.
Master
There's
jackass. They're master
yeah.
jackasses. So call them MJ from now on, master jackass. And so that's the wrong way to network. You don't just get a bunch of connections and please, gimme. Build real relationships with people. And then that way they feel comfortable stamping their brand on you. Because if I stamp my brand on you, that means that I would feel comfortable hiring you. And that goes a long ways for the person on the other side that has a job opening, because they know I'm not going to send them a jackass just because someone connects with me on LinkedIn. They know that I'm only going to send them someone that's been vetted, and you can get vetted even if I've never met you in person, by being that person that builds a personal brand, shows something, gives back to the community, et cetera, et cetera.
But you know
That's the way
what,
to do
Ken?
those things.
To do all those things, you got to work at it, right?
You got to
So
work. Well, that's the thing. That four-letter word that blocks so many people, right? Work. People,
you,
I don't want to, oh, that's a lot of work. Of course it is. Like, do you think that you and do people really think that like you or I just sit around eating bonbons all day long? I don't even know if they have
no,
bonbons
I
anymore.
heck, man, I haven't even had lunch, and you got me into tacos. So like, yeah,
Tacos, bonbons
yeah.
for dessert and stuff. Yeah, but it takes a lot of work. It's not going to be easy. And getting your first job, Like that's nothing compared to like what you're going to have to keep putting in, and that's why it's important to build that muscle when you're starting out. Build that muscle of like I'm willing to put in the work and do what I need to. The other thing I'll just add on the job thing, since I kind of took us there, is be open to not getting the job you want as your first job. What do I
That's
mean?
the thing.
Guess what? There's a ton of sales jobs, marketing jobs, technical writer jobs, all these jobs that you wouldn't think of that don't have cybersecurity in the job title that can get you into that company like Splunk. And then from there, guess what? You can move laterally throughout the company, just like a criminal hacker, move
Which is
laterally throughout the
exactly,
company.
ironically, what a cybersecurity support professional is supposed to prevent is lateral movement. So,
Right, right.
and you're
But you can do that
encouraging
as security companies. Yeah, use the tools against them.
it.
But so many people, right, are so hell bent on I got to be a SOC analyst. I want to be a pen tester, and so they're unemployed for like 2 3 years when they could just take a sales SDR job, work the phone. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, every first job sucks. I worked a lot of jobs, and we can dig into that. I worked a lot of jobs that sucked, but you could get in and you can make maybe 60 80 grand here in the US base salary with some bonus structure or whatever.
Right.
That's not the point of all that. The point of all that is get something on your resume. And if that company has other openings, if it's like a Splunk or Trend Micro or some in the world, you can start moving laterally after like 6 to 12 months because they're going to be like, oh, well, you're already vetted. You know the company culture. You're here. You blend in. You
Sure.
work with a lot of teams. You're much more easy to hire for me as a hiring manager, even if you don't have the experience, than it is to bring in someone more senior for that role. I'd rather train you up because you're already here. We know you're going to stay because you're bought into the company vision. Whereas some person applying for the job, and that's a way you can get past people with experience too. And people just don't realize that. Well, I think they realize it. They just don't listen to me or any others that say it on social
Well,
media. But that's the fastest way to get a cyber job. And I'll tell you right now, the people that have listened and done that, they're usually getting jobs within 2 weeks. So you can
really, is
wait,
that
weigh it in your head. No, that's real. That's real. It's been, two. It depends on the hiring process of the company, so it might be up to a
sure?
month,
But
but
well,
most
look,
of them
I agree
are
with
in two
you.
weeks. Yeah,
I agree
it's
with you, Ken.
it's
It
it,
happens relatively quickly if you find the right person. And what they don't realize, a lot of times you're hiring for that personality. You're hiring for that fit within the organization. It's just not the technical. Granted, I will say there are some roles where you do need the technical background, and you really want that. But entry level, there's a we
right.
good
Yeah,
clay. You
yeah.
want the good clay. That's what you're
No,
looking for.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. People with the two main things, right? The right attitude, the right aptitude. Like, are you going to fit in with the company, and are you a negative Nancy, so to speak, right? Are you going to be a jerk as soon as you come in and poison the rest of the team, right? It only takes one bad apple to
Oh,
spoil the bunch. And do you have the right aptitude? And what I mean by that is, like, can we actually train you? Are you trainable, or do you think you know everything already? If you're trainable and you can fit in into different teams that are going to be very diverse,
sure.
then I can train you in everything, and I can literally train someone non-technical in anything technical that I want to. It might take them a little longer to get things, but if I, as a hiring manager in the company, get the right people, like you said, I can. If I get the right mold, so to speak, I can mold that into someone really, really great in the company within a short period of time, 3 to 6 months in many cases. So yeah, I think when we hear the term cybersecurity, we immediately think technical and we run like hell away
Oh,
from it if we're not technical people.
it's a big it's a mental roadblock for a lot of people to transition out of whatever they are doing now into
Mhm.
a career that would be more fulfilling for them. They're like, "Oh, I'm no good with computers. I never code. I'm not a computer science guy." You hear a huge laundry list of things, but you're absolutely right. If you're willing to put the work in and it's a vision that you have, you can absolutely get into this industry. It's a young industry. There's a lot more jobs than there are people. You can do it. It can be done. So let's say you established your brand. You've done that work. How do you hack the interview itself? You actually wrote a book on this topic.
Yeah, so the book, Hack the Cybersecurity Interview book, shameless plug again, right here,
Yes,
bam.
please.
I
Where
will
can
say
we
you so
find it? We can find it at any of the local
yeah,
booksellers.
yeah, you can find out so you can find it online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, stuff like that. There's also a number of libraries, public libraries here in the US, and also college libraries, community college, and also some universities that have started
Okay.
to put orders in. I will say that if you go to like your local public library, just tell them to buy the book. Like, hey, I'm looking for this book. If they say we don't have it, it's like, are you going to buy it? And so that way they can put an order in and get some copies there for you. That way you don't have to buy the book. You can make that. They always have budget set aside. Make the companies invest in you, right? Even if it's a public library, they get budget they have to use. So help them use the budget in a good way. But yeah, so the hacking the interview process, the book itself goes over a number of different roles that a lot of people are looking at, including
Okay.
sales engineering. A lot of people don't look at that, but I mentioned that's a good route to
That's a
get
very
in.
important role, by the
Hint,
way, and it's
hint,
hard to
wink, wink.
find. And you can make a
No, it is.
lot of
Yeah.
money at that.
you you can. The other thing it does is it really forces you to work with people, right? You're going to deal, especially in an SDR role, you're going to be dialing the phone a lot. So you're going to hear all sorts of excuses and objections. Guess what? That may suck while you're going through it, but that's going to help you as you grow in your career and you start having to go before the board to get more budget for your cyber team. Now you know how to negotiate. You're used to objections. You're used to overcoming them in a professional manner instead of just saying "f you" and hanging up the phone. You know how to address those different individuals and the things that they care about. Sales roles are so I forget, I can't think of the term to use, but kind of underwritten, right? Like they're like like underestimated. People underestimate them so much, but like learning sales can help you in so many cyber roles. No
Oh,
matter where you go, it's a great foundation. Same with marketing. If you learn the fundamentals of marketing, you can literally get into any company you want to, even if you don't have the experience you're looking for, because you know how to market yourself appropriately for whatever that job is. So these are like fundamental skills that people overlook because they're like, I want to be a SOC analyst, I want to be a pen tester, I got to hack things, blah blah blah, you know, slow
pen
clap,
tester's the
that
number
slow golf
one.
clap. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it is, yeah. And it's like,
You hear
do
it
you
all the
really
time.
understand? Yeah, people don't, I don't think people understand how hard it is to get a junior pen tester role with no IT background whatsoever. It's you really have to have someone that's willing to take a chance on you, which goes back to the branding, the
Right.
networking, that's that sort of stuff. And it's very rare for that to happen. So people may get mad by that, but that's very rare. Getting 1% on Try Hack Me, that honestly, for hiring managers, people will lie to you on social media. People lie all the freaking time. So a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, try hack me top 1% or whatever percent. That's the key, and I only hire people with that, blah blah. Those people don't hire shit. They don't hire anybody. They don't have a but they're not hiring managers. They're other people that are trying to get a job. They don't know anything. And not to knock them, like they know stuff, but like they don't know anything about getting a job because they're trying to get a job too. So like
I
why
love
would
it.
you
We're gonna
listen
get
to
so much hate mail. This is gonna be great.
and I don't care. Like whatever, you can hate. So I was a guest on the Cybersecurity Marketing Society, their podcast with
Yeah.
John and Maria a while back. I think it was last month in July. But anyways, I was on there and I talked about my block party. So I
Yeah.
have a block party and it's been going on for years on social media. And so I'm happy to add anybody that wants to hate. I put you on the block party. I don't know what music's playing there. That's still up for debate. I have no idea. But you get blocked. You get an invite right away. Happy to send you there, and you never have to worry about hearing from me again because you'll be blocked, right?
You
So
know,
that, yeah, we'll get hate
Ken, it's
mail, but
refreshing to
it's
hear
reality.
somebody say what all of us have known for quite some time. And what you're
Yeah,
speaking is the truth of the matter here.
yeah, and it's not because all of us are trying to be jerks by telling people this. It's we're trying to tell you the real. We're trying to pull you aside like mom or dad in a way, and tell you like it really is, right? Or that good friend or something. Like we're trying to pull you aside like them and say like, look, you're lied to because a lot of companies want to make money off you for certs and degrees and boot camps and
Sure.
whatever. And again, there's a lot of great programs out there. Not going to knock them, but let's be real. A lot of people are broke. They're trying to get into cyber because they want to get a job that pays well. Of course, they want to
Yep.
help and whatever the other reason is. But reality is, you don't, feel good doesn't pay the bills. You need a job that pays the bills. Cyber can be very lucrative depending on what you do. And so
Right.
we're all just trying to tell you like it really is so we can help set you up for success. Some people are going to hate, some people are not going to listen, but maybe somebody a year from now that said F you when they first heard this episode will be in a different spot in their life mentally and say, you know what?
Maybe
They
that
they they
advice
kind of
is
told it
good.
like it was. Yeah, exactly. That was good advice. Let me try that. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks later or a month later, they get their dream job because they finally listened. I myself, I've had situations like that, not cyber stuff, but like there's books that I've bought where like I buy the book and then like I read like one page, I'm like, this sucks. And I set it on the shelf. But then like 2 years later, I'm looking for an answer and I see that book. I'm like, oh, cool. I got a lot of times I'm on Amazon. I'm like, oh, I bought that book. And I go look at my shelf, like, oh, there it is. And so then I look at it and I'm like, oh, there's the answer I was looking for. What a great book. So understand that you may be hating right now on what we're saying on this episode, but a year from now, 5 years from now, whatever, you may be like, that was some really good advice because now you're in a different mindset. So that's why I don't care about the hating because it doesn't matter to me. If at some point in the future you look at this and it helps you, that's all honestly all any of us
So
care about. That's why we share our knowledge on these things.
now, do you have any kind of an opinion on going to a cybersecurity career versus doing something else? Is there any bias you have or partiality you have towards cybersecurity as a new career to reinvent yourself in, if you will?
Yeah, fastest way to make cash is sell drugs, but that's illegal, so you'll go to jail. So yeah, I mean, cybersecurity can be lucrative. I always recommend people actually do an IT job first, if possible. You may not be in a situation where you can take a lower paying job, whatever. But I recommend that if you can, and specifically maybe help desk, but I'd say networking. I think that's number one. I like it, so I'm a little biased, but I think it gives you a good exposure to an organization. You can kind of see things at an enterprise level, et cetera. So I think something like that. If you're going kind of more the technical route, if you wanted to,
Right.
what people forget, I think, is that just about I mean, every job in the world has some kind of cyber component in it. You do some kind of security. So as an
Sure.
example, I used to be a pediatric nurse, and so when I would
Really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
I
okay.
worked with so
All
so
right.
so to make everyone listening to this say, "Aw," so I used to work with I did adults for a little bit, cardiology, electrophysiology, hospice. Adults whine all the time, so I went to work with kids, and so kids are really cool. They got all this going on, but they're still like doo-doo-doo on the video game. They don't care. So I worked with very little babies that were very critical. They had
Wow.
vents and trachs, and a lot of times they would do what we call code. So basically, they stop breathing, and you got to bring them back and all that stuff. And I worked in the home environment, so like you're the first responder, right? You got to bring them back. Ambulances take
Wow.
forever, so you've got to be able to bring them back. So you have to keep your skill sets up. So it's a very very fun job, very rewarding. A lot of kids you get to kind of watch them grow up for the ones that do make it. And unfortunately, there's some that don't make it, and things like that. But um, where I'm going with that is when I went back into IT and then cyber, or what we call cyber now, because that's sexy. Cybersecurity is sexy,
All right.
a sexy term to use. But when I would go teach like security awareness to healthcare staff, I was able to then relate it to what they cared about. Again, going back to what they care about. So I was able to pull real examples where they would know like what security is in what they're doing. So for example, I'd be like, look, when you're charting on a patient and you got to get away from the computer, you normally lock the computer or you turn the monitor on, something so nobody else looks at the screen. And they're like, yeah. And some of them were like, they did the yeah, like they really weren't doing that. They were just leaving the screen up. And you're like, well, the reason you want to do that is because number one, HIPAA and other regulations, like
Right.
if an auditor comes in, they see that screen up and nobody around, you're getting in trouble, whoever that nurse is, and you may lose your license or you might get a ding against your license. Now you can't pay your bills. Do you like to, we all don't like to pay bills, but do you like to do vacation? They're like, yeah, I love vacation. All right. You wouldn't have money for vacation if you lose your license, right? Because you got to figure out a new job and stuff like that. So going back to relating it, right? That's what you do. And so if you're out there looking at like cybersecurity as a career right now, and you're like, well, how the heck do my transferable skills come across to cyber? I'll give you a couple examples. I gave the nursing one. Like you're following a process as a nurse. You're able to, if you do like a blood draw or something, or if you put an IV in somebody, you're following a process. You're maintaining patient safety. These are all things you should be putting on your resume because these are keywords that will pull up like, oh, they can follow a process. Okay, they maintain patient safety, so they can do that for a patient. They can do it for records that we have, or they can do it for our critical data or
Yep.
services or whatever. Same thing with someone working at a grocery store stocking shelves. You're following a process to stock the shelves and label things and do whatever. So there's a lot of those jobs out there that you're doing right now that have transferable skills. You just have to figure out whatever the heck those things are that lead into cyber. So that was a very long-winded way to say that I think that there are a lot of careers out there that are outside of the cybersecurity realm, and I think you have to do what makes you happy. Like for me, I found we have a number of companies, and so one of them is a credit repair business, and I've actually found that I like credit stuff. I don't necessarily like working with people and doing that stuff, but I like the knowledge of it, right? Because I didn't have all that financial education growing up, and so I think that you have to explore things that interest you. If that's cyber right now, if that's something in cyber right now, then that's cool. If you're just getting into it to, oh, it's a, these media places are putting out that there's millions of jobs open and they're all paying multi six figures and now, you'll
Yeah,
be a
sure.
millionaire in a year and all this, BS, then that's the wrong reason, right? It's okay to, so with that, I say like explore with free and low cost learning first. See if it's even something you want to do, if it even interests you at all. If it doesn't, then put it aside. Maybe there's some area of cyber that does, but
Right.
if none of it does, then look at something else. Find something that interests you because there's a lot of burnout in this industry. There's a lot of stress you deal with, especially depending on the role. There's a lot of instances where geopolitics gets mixed into private sector cybersecurity stuff
Sure.
now. So you may find yourself with a hit team after you, and you're just trying to do your job. So like there's these are rare cases, right? Things like that. But all these things can happen where it causes a lot of stress in your life. I'm not saying that to scare anyone away from cybersecurity careers, but I'm saying like you should do what makes you happy because you don't know if tomorrow you're going to get hit by a bus, right? So if you're trying a lot of different cyber areas through like free courses and you're like, I don't, nothing's really clicking for me. I don't really like any of this stuff. Find something that clicks for you. Maybe that's knitting sweaters, and that's okay. Maybe for the next 6 months, you put out courses on how to knit sweaters. Maybe you make millions. Who knows? And then from there, maybe you come back to the cyber stuff and you're like, you know what? I really like to do forensics now. I kind of like it now. So that's not really answering your question, I don't think, but I think
No,
it's
but
my
it
answer to your
did.
question.
It
You know, it,
did.
it
It did. I
do what
think
you
it did.
love.
Do what you love,
Do
right?
what you love.
But you also just a second ago mentioned forensics, so I got to ask the question here. You've done so many interviews, and we go to your channel. You see, it's an eclectic mix. So of all the of all the advice you've been given or people have talked about, what is there? Can you boil it down to some salient things that companies should be doing that actually makes them safer, that genuinely mitigates their risk? What has been your impression from the knowledge you've gained?
I mean, there's no one thing, right? I think
I
companies,
know.
a lot of companies do their best effort. I think when people look from the outside on these issues, like, oh, a data breach, kill them, I think that people don't realize like how complex things in. Like some people are like, oh, just secure your S3 buckets because that was a leak. But there's like 400,000. Like there's going to be mistakes made even with automation. So I think the thing to realize if you're someone maybe getting in, and I guess maybe we'll talk to two ends. On the company side, there's a lot of best practice information out there. There's a lot of good podcasts and things like that. Like the Cyber Wire is a good one out there. Dark Rhino's got good
Okay.
stuff. There's a lot of them out there that share a lot of best practices depending on the domain. For example, cloud security, right? The cloud security podcast with
Yeah.
Ashish. Phenomenal. He's a phenomenal guy. Always dresses well too, and a lot of good information shared on there. So I think depending on what problem you're trying to solve in the organization, whether you're a SMB or enterprise company, find podcasts and other places with that information to learn from people with boots on the ground in there of what they're doing to better secure things.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, if you're someone trying to get into stuff, same thing. Whatever kind of thing you want to learn, just immerse yourself in podcasts and learn from people that have been there already. So yeah, I mean, there's frameworks, there's all these things out there already, right? Like companies are already doing a lot of these things. And I think the other thing that I'll just mention is that whether you're currently in or you're trying to get your first job, there's a good book. I'm gonna shamelessly plug. I'm not gonna grab it from the shelf, but it's called the CISO Evolution. So the CISO CISO for those that don't
Uh,
know how to sell it. The CISO Evolution, great book on how you can communicate the cyber stuff to the business side because at the end of the day, a business is a business, and cyber is just one very minute component of the risk of that company. They got a lot of other things going on. And if
right.
you're able to take that minute area and communicate it to the broader organization of why this minute thing affects all these other things and why it's so important, that's going to really help you in your career no matter what level you are right now. So I think that's a great book that breaks down that and
Oh,
also breaks down like financial things because a lot of people suck at finances. The other thing I will say is if it's in your budget, Udemy, not to plug Udemy because they're not giving any of us endorsements. But if you want to sponsor Dark Rhino on an episode, Udemy, just reach out to them and sponsor their show. But Udemy has a low cost. I think you just search for financial analyst. I've taken the training before. That's why I say it's good. I don't remember the name of the course. Well, basically, it's financial analyst training. And the reason I recommend that is you can learn the money of business. And if you speak the money of business, which is the language of business, if you speak the money, then that's going to help you so much in your career. So the book's a good thing. You can find that course on Udemy. The key with Udemy is like wish list the course unless it's on sale, and then just wait for like Monday. They usually run course sales on a Monday, so you can get it on a discount. That's how Udemy usually works. I probably shouldn't say that because now they're going to change it up, but you can get the course for like $10 or something like that. And I think it's good because you go through things like this. If you learn about money, that's what the business understands. And the more you understand
That's right.
money, the easier it is for you actually to accelerate your career. Like I understood money because I kept learning about it because I didn't know anything about it. And that's how I jumped into like management jobs, executive leadership, all that stuff very quickly. Whereas other people put in like 20 years and then they finally get like that mid-level manager job and they're still trying to work their way up because they don't
Right.
understand the dollars. So if you can speak the language of money, which is the language of business, that's going to help you so much. I recommend those things if you're just starting out trying to learn things. Put the technical stuff, honestly, put the technical stuff aside for a couple weeks. Go through a course like that or read that book, The Sizzle Evolution. It's by oh damn, I can't read the author's name, but it's by, Wiley is a publisher. You can find it
Okay.
on Amazon. The Sizzle Revolution. Go through like the book or go through a financial analyst course over on Udemy or something. Go through some YouTube videos, whatever. Learn the language of money in a business, how things work, how you can project things, financial statements, things like that. Then you can come back to your technical studies. Because let's be real, if you're trying to get a SOC job or if you're trying to get a junior pen testing job, whatever, that's going to take you more than a couple of ways to get.
Sure.
Because those jobs everybody wants. So invest that time wisely. That's my advice on that aspect. Is
No,
like
that's
learn money, and you'll do very well in your career.
hey, you know what, Ken? You're providing actionable intelligence, which is something in cybersecurity that's very rare. You know? Ken, we're at the time here, but I wanted to see if there was anything new that you're up to. Is there any new shows coming out that you're going to be producing, or you're getting into the world? It seems like you're getting into an entirely new world. What's going on? Anything you want to plug here?
Yeah, so we've been shamelessly plugging the book the whole
Which
episode.
is
So I
fine.
won't.
You can plug that again if
Well,
you'd like.
yeah, hack the cybersecurity interview. Get it off Amazon. But the other thing is, yeah, we do have more TV show episodes coming out. So Meryl Vernon, who's well known as a purple teamer,
She used
she's
to
got an
work for
episode.
us. You know that.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, okay. You're the place she said paid her 10 million a year. Okay, great,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah,
She was one
yeah,
of our threat hunters. Great,
yeah.
great person. Very
Yeah,
knowledgeable.
yeah, she's fantastic. So she'll have an episode coming out. Mike Jones, not the rapper, but someone more popular. He'll have an episode coming soon. I brought Joe Stymack back on again. He's the CEO of AccuHire.com. That's helped build out a lot of the interview programs at a lot of big companies like Bank of America, things like that. So he's actually going to come on for another episode. He shared information for job seekers before. Now he's coming back on to share for hiring managers and HR people as they want to build out programs like what should they be doing for their organization to help a lot of the smaller businesses out there because a lot of them have just really bad biased hiring processes. And so he's trying to help them with that. I also interviewed recently another gentleman named Carl who does a lot of background checks so he can find out everything about you. So he's going to share information
Mm.
for both sides, both job seekers and employers, and sharing some stories about some of the interesting uh, results of background checks that he's done over the years in that episode. So yeah, there's a number of guests. Veronica Rose, who a lot of people might know, she's over in Kenya. She's a auditor. She's with a what is it? Is it ISACA that has a CISA cert or ISSA?
Um,
One of those two. But she's with them and stuff like that, doing does branding and stuff like that. So she's very well known on the continent of Africa, especially in Kenya, and of course we
that's
all know and
fantastic.
love her. So there's just a number of guests that'll be coming out, and shameless plug here. If you want to be on the show, if you've got something to share, reach out to me. I have a strict no jerk rule, so if you're a jerk, it's not going to be a good fit. But if you're not a jerk, feel free to come on and just feel free to ping me of course, we have sponsorship opportunities for the TV show and I can send people the media kit if they want to see what that looks like for their company. But yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to get more guests on. I really created the TV show to give people in cyber a platform to just share their message, share their wisdom, and really just share their story with the world. Because a lot of people go through the same challenges, and right now they're looking at these different careers in cyber, saying, "Well, I can't do that because of X." And in
Right.
reality, someone else has already gone through that challenge and overcome it. And so that's why I want people to be able to come on and share their message. I definitely recommend people check out the episode I did with Chip Harris, and you'll realize why I recommend that episode once you like visually see it. It's just kind of neat to talk to someone in that outfit. Just leave it as that. And so but I've had a lot of great guests. Over the time. I've had Chris Roberts on, who's a very well known hacker. Zed Savi I've had on, who's another
Yeah.
well known hacker out of Europe and Israel and stuff. Had of course Mary Galloway, Tia
Yep.
Hopkins, Chris Fullen, Renee Small. I mean just all these big names in cyber have come on the show. And Chris Kubecka, who's a very well-known hacker. She lives over in Europe, and she's got so many interesting stories. It's just love her to get her on talking. And she makes her own wine and stuff like that. So she's just a great person overall. But I just been so fortunate with the show to bring a lot of great guests on. I'm always looking for more. So again, I do have that strict no jerk rule. So if you're a jerk, don't worry about it. But if you're not a jerk, always happy to bring you on the show.
Fantastic. Well, you're doing great work, Ken, and you're doing somebody a favor out there, and that's meaningful. So thank you for that, and keep that up.
Yeah, no, thanks. And again, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Ken. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Hope to have you back sometime.